The night was cold and full of whispers. The twin moons hung above the black sky like pale eyes watching the empire of Velora. Inside the grand castle, a lone human guard named Ethan Vale stood at his post. His breath turned to mist as he looked over the endless marble corridor. Ethan was not born noble. He was a soldier from the colonies, taken from the war and sent to serve the Vampire Duchess Serafina Velora, the ruler of this frozen world. Many called her the Queen of Shadows. Some said she was beautiful beyond words. Others said she was a monster who never slept. When he first saw her, Ethan forgot how to breathe. The Duchess walked like the wind moved for her. Her silver hair shone like liquid light. Her red eyes glowed softly in the darkness. Every step she took felt like a song the stars once knew. "You are the new guard," she said in a quiet voice. "A human?" Ethan nodded. "Yes, my lady." She tilted her head, studying him as if he were a strange creature. "Humans break easily," she whispered, "especially when they stand too close to me." Ethan's grip tightened on his spear. "I don't break easily," he said, trying to hide the tremor in his voice. For a moment, her lips curved in a small smile. It wasn't kind, but it wasn't cruel either. It was the smile of someone who had forgotten how to feel. Days turned into nights, and Ethan learned that the castle was alive with secrets. The walls whispered. The mirrors showed faces that weren't there. He often felt something watching him when he patrolled the silent halls. The other guards avoided the Duchess's wing. They said she fed on those who disappointed her. Ethan didn't believe the rumors, until one night he heard a scream echo from her chambers. When he rushed in, there was nothing but silence, and the Duchess stood by the window, her lips stained faintly red. She turned and looked at him. "You shouldn't enter without permission," she said. Her voice was calm but heavy with warning. "I thought someone was hurt," Ethan said. Her gaze softened. "Perhaps someone was," she whispered, then walked past him, her cold hand brushing his shoulder like a spark of lightning. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. He dreamed of her voice calling his name. He woke with a strange ache in his neck, though no wound was there. A week later, rebels attacked a nearby village. The Duchess summoned her council. They wanted to burn the place to ash, but she said nothing. Instead, she looked at Ethan. "You will go," she said, "alone." He stared in disbelief. "Me? A single guard?" "You fought in the colonies," she replied. "You know how humans think. Show me your strength." Ethan didn't argue. He took his weapon and left through the frozen gate. The battle was brutal. The rebels were desperate, and their blades were soaked in fire. Ethan fought like a man possessed. He didn't know why, but something inside him told him he had to survive, for her. When he returned, bloodied and exhausted, he fell to his knees before the Duchess's throne. She rose silently, her gown sweeping across the floor like smoke. "You came back," she said. Her tone was strange. Not surprise, not joy, something deeper. Ethan tried to speak, but his voice broke. "I did what you ordered." The Duchess stepped closer, her eyes glowing like two red suns. She touched his chin, raising his face toward hers. "You bled for me," she said softly, "and I do not forget loyalty." Before he could answer, she leaned in. Her breath was cold as the grave. Her lips touched his neck, and with a whisper, she said, "Now you are mine." Her fangs sank into his skin, not in anger, but in something that felt like sorrow. Ethan gasped, the world spinning around him. He felt her memories pour into his mind, centuries of darkness, loneliness, and hunger. When she pulled away, her eyes shimmered with tears she would never admit. "I should not have done that," she said quietly, "but fate has chosen you." Ethan fell into darkness, feeling her voice echo in his soul. The mark on his neck burned softly, glowing red under the moonlight, and far above the castle, lightning split the sky as if the heavens themselves had witnessed the beginning of something forbidden. When Ethan woke, the world felt strange. The air smelled sharper, the light cut deeper, and every sound carried like thunder in his ears. His neck burned faintly where the Duchess had bitten him, but the pain wasn't normal. It pulsed like a second heartbeat. He looked around the dim chamber, realizing he wasn't in his barracks. He was lying in the Duchess's private quarters. Heavy curtains blocked the morning sun, and ancient candles burned with blue flames. "She kept you alive," came a voice from the corner. It was Lady Marin, one of the Vampire Council members. Her silver eyes were cold. You should not be here, human. Ethan tried to sit up. Where is she? Gone, Marin said. She had business with the council. You are lucky she didn't drain you dry. Ethan touched the wound on his neck. She didn't want to kill me, he said quietly. Marin gave a bitter smile. You don't know her kind. Human blood is forbidden to the nobles. If the council finds out she bit you, they'll call it treason. Ethan's chest tightened. He didn't understand what had happened, but he could still feel her, in his thoughts, in his heartbeat, in the shadows that clung to the corners of the room. Later that night, Serafina returned. The hall went silent when she entered. Her presence carried power like a storm. You may leave us, she told Marin. Her voice left no space for argument. When they were alone, Ethan stood weakly. Why did you do it? He asked. Why me? Serafina's eyes softened. You fought with courage. You reminded me of something I thought was long dead, she said. But the mark, it was not meant to happen. What does it mean? Ethan asked. It means, she said, stepping closer. Our souls are now connected. You will feel what I feel, hear what I hear. You are bound to me until death. Ethan froze. Bound? She nodded slowly. Yes, your heartbeat and mine are linked by blood. If one of us dies, the other will follow. He could barely speak. That's impossible. Her expression darkened. For vampires, nothing is impossible, only dangerous. Over the next days, strange things began to happen. When the Duchess grew angry, Ethan's pulse would spike. When she walked through firelight, his skin would tingle as if it were his own flesh burning. Sometimes he even heard her thoughts, soft whispers crossing the distance between them. The guards began to notice changes too. They whispered about how the Duchess seemed different, calmer, distracted, even gentle. It frightened them, for the Duchess of Velora had never shown mercy before. One night, while Ethan patrolled the tower walls, he heard a voice inside his mind. Ethan, come to me. He stopped breathing. It wasn't a sound. It was her. She was calling without words, drawn through the bond they shared. He ran through the corridors until he reached her chamber. She stood by the window, staring at the red moon. You heard me, she said softly, without turning. I think so, he answered. I don't understand what's happening. She turned toward him, her face pale as snow. The bond is growing stronger, she whispered. I feel your heartbeat even when you are far from me. Ethan's hands trembled. Can it be broken? No, she said, her voice barely above a breath. Not without death. For a moment, silence filled the air. Her eyes met his, no longer cold, but heavy with something human, something she had hidden for centuries. Then a loud knock shattered the moment. A messenger burst through the door, bowing in panic. My lady, the council summons you. They say a hunter has arrived, a human knight claiming to cleanse this world of vampires. Serafina's gaze hardened. Let them wait, she said, turning away. The messenger hesitated. They also say he carries sunlight in his veins. Ethan frowned. Sunlight? Serafina looked at him, her expression unreadable. The hunters were myths, men who used ancient blood science to kill my kind. If one truly exists, he could destroy everything. That night, Ethan felt her fear echo in his chest. He realized that their bond wasn't only a curse. It was a doorway, one that let him feel her loneliness, her centuries of pain, and the fragile heart hidden behind her immortal strength. When dawn came, Serafina stood alone in the balcony. Her eyes glowed faintly as she whispered to the wind. The council suspects me. The hunter comes for me, but I will not let them take what is mine. Far below, Ethan looked up from the courtyard, feeling the echo of her words inside his soul, and though he didn't fully understand why, he knew one thing for certain. He would protect her, even if it meant standing against gods, monsters, or death itself. The next evening, the castle of Velora trembled beneath a crimson sky. The air felt heavier than usual, and even the shadows seemed afraid. Ethan could sense it through the bond. Serafina's unease. Her thoughts brushed faintly against his mind like a cold whisper. He's here. The hunter has come. Ethan stood at the gates as the figure approached, cloaked in black armor lined with gold veins that glowed faintly. His eyes burned like white fire, and his sword shimmered with sunlight trapped in steel. The guards stepped back in fear, none daring to speak. I come in the name of the Holy Order, the man said, his voice calm but filled with conviction. I am Sir Kale of the Dawn. I seek the Duchess of Velora. Ethan moved forward, his instincts sharp. You'll speak with respect. This is her domain. Kale's gaze shifted toward him. A human guard defending a vampire? He asked. Strange, unless you've already been touched by her curse. Ethan felt his blood turn cold. The mark on his neck pulsed faintly. He didn't reply. Inside the grand hall, Seraphina waited on her throne. Her beauty looked sharper now, like glass ready to shatter. So, the Order sends another fool, she said as the doors opened. Kale entered without bowing. You defy the council, feed on the living, and now they whisper you've broken the oldest law, bonding with a human. The hall fell silent. Ethan froze behind her. The accusation spread like fire through the air. Seraphina's eyes narrowed. Careful with your words, Hunter, she said softly. The last man who spoke to me that way no longer casts a shadow. But Kale only smiled faintly. Then you admit it. Ethan could feel her fury through the bond. It burned like lightning in his veins. He stepped forward. Enough. You speak of honor, but you came to kill, not to judge. Kale's eyes flashed with surprise. So it's true. The human feels her anger. You're connected. Seraphina's voice broke through the tension, cold and calm. You will leave Velora tonight. I will not, Kale said, drawing his glowing blade. Not until the curse is cleansed. One of you must die. In an instant, the ground shook. Seraphina moved faster than sight. Her hand struck his sword, sending sparks across the marble floor. Kale's armor flared with golden light. Burning her palm, she hissed, her skin smoking from the holy metal. Ethan grabbed his weapon, rushing between them. Stop. You'll kill each other. Stay back, human. Kale roared. You don't understand what she is. But Ethan didn't move, his voice trembled. I understand enough. She's not a monster. She saved me. Kale's eyes softened briefly. Then she's already taken your will. Before anyone could react, Kale struck. A blinding flash of light cut through the air. Ethan pushed Seraphina aside. The blade slicing across his shoulder, blood splattered across the throne. Seraphina screamed. A sound that wasn't human. The air turned red, and her power exploded like a storm. Every candle in the hall went out. The hunter stumbled back, shielding his eyes. When the darkness cleared, Seraphina stood over Ethan's fallen body. Her eyes glowed pure crimson. You heard him, she whispered, and her voice echoed like thunder. She lifted her hand, and shadows formed around her fingers like blades. Kale raised his sword, but her power hit first. A wave of black mist that hurled him through the doors. He crashed against the stone wall, his armor cracking. She knelt beside Ethan, her cold hands trembling. Why did you protect me? She whispered. Ethan's voice was weak but steady. Because you don't deserve to be alone. Her breath caught. For centuries, no one had spoken to her like that. She felt something break inside. Something ancient and frozen finally starting to bleed. She touched his cheek gently. Rest, my human, she said. I will not lose you. The guards rushed in, but one look from her sent them away. She lifted Ethan in her arms and carried him through the secret passage that led beneath the castle. Her tears fell silently on his armor, turning to red sparks as they touched. Far above them, Kale rose slowly, coughing blood. His armor glowed weakly as he looked at the mark burning on Ethan's neck. So it's true, he whispered to himself. The Duchess has done the unthinkable. She's in love with a human. He sheathed his sword and turned toward the night. Then the council will come for her, and no blood bond will save them both. Down in the hidden catacombs, Seraphina laid Ethan on a stone altar. Her hands hovered above his wound. Channeling her ancient power, the light from her touch flowed into him like liquid fire. Sleep, Ethan, she murmured. You belong to me now, and I will burn the stars before I let them take you. Above, the storm raged, and the first drops of blood rain began to fall, the omen that the Vampire Council had declared war. Days passed since the night of the battle. The castle that once stood proud was now wrapped in silence. Dark banners fluttered in the wind, and whispers of betrayal filled every corridor. The Vampire Council had sent a message. The Duchess of Velora has broken the sacred law. Ethan awoke in the hidden chamber beneath the castle. His shoulder still burned where Kale's blade had struck him. Seraphina sat nearby, her eyes dim from exhaustion. For nights, she had not fed, not slept, only watched over him. "You shouldn't be here," Ethan said softly. "The council will come for you." She smiled faintly. "They already are," she whispered. "But I am not leaving you." He tried to sit up, but pain shot through his chest. "Why?" he asked. "Why risk everything for me?" Her eyes glowed faintly. "Because you remind me of what I once was. Before the crown, before the hunger, I had a heart." Ethan looked away, unsure how to answer. The bond between them pulsed stronger every day. Sometimes he could feel her sadness, her fear, even the echo of her heartbeat. That night, a storm broke over Velora. Lightning tore across the sky, and the great bells began to ring. The council had arrived. 12 carriages of obsidian glass rolled through the gates. Each carried a noble older than history and colder than death. At their head walked Lord Veloric, the High Chancellor. His silver crown gleamed under the rain. "Bring the Duchess before us," he commanded. "She stands accused of blood treason." Seraphina stepped into the grand hall, wearing her black and crimson gown. She looked calm, but Ethan could feel the weight pressing inside her chest. Every heartbeat echoed like thunder in his veins. Veloric's eyes were sharp as daggers. "You broke the law. You took a human's blood by will. You bonded with him. A forbidden act that taints our kind." "I did what my heart demanded," Seraphina replied softly. "And that is something none of you would understand." The hall erupted in whispers. The nobles hissed like serpents. Veloric raised his hand for silence. "You are no longer fit to rule. The throne of Velora belongs to the council." Ethan, hiding behind the pillars, clenched his fists. Rage built inside him as he felt Seraphina's pain pour through the bond. He stepped out into the light, ignoring the gasps around him. "If she's guilty, then so am I," he said. "You call her cursed, but she's more human than any of you." The vampires sneered. "Silence, mortal," one shouted. "You dare speak in this court?" But Seraphina's voice cut through the chaos, cold and strong. "Touch him, and I will show you what fear truly means." The chamber trembled as her power rose. The torches flickered, shadows twisting like living things. Veloric's eyes narrowed. "You would defend a human over your own kind?" "I would defend the one who gave me reason to live," she said. That was enough. The guards drew their spears. The council declared her sentence: exile and execution at dawn. They seized her arms, forcing her to her knees. Ethan shouted her name. Breaking free from the guards that held him, he reached her side, blood running down his face. Seraphina looked at him, her voice barely a whisper. "I told you to run." "I won't," he said, "not without you." For a moment, the hall stood still. Even the council hesitated. Then the Duchess's eyes darkened to pure crimson. The air froze. "Then we die together," she said. With one breath, she unleashed her full power. The glass windows shattered. A wave of energy exploded through the room, sending vampires flying across the marble floor. The throne cracked under the pressure of her fury. Ethan shielded his face as the storm of shadows filled the air. When it cleared, the hall was empty. The council gone, the guards unconscious. Only Seraphina stood, trembling, her strength fading. She turned to Ethan. "We must leave Velora," she said. "The council will return with armies. I cannot fight them all." He nodded. "Then we run." Together they moved through the burning corridors, past the grand gates, into the forest beyond. Behind them, the castle of Velora burned like a dying star. At the edge of the forest, Seraphina stopped and looked back once. Her eyes reflected both sorrow and freedom. "This was my kingdom," she whispered, "but now, you are my world." Ethan took her hand. "Then we'll build a new one." Far in the distance, Lord Veloric watched from a high tower, his cloak whipping in the wind. "Let her run," he said. "For now, but the blood bond will destroy them both before the next moon." And as thunder rolled across the sky, Seraphina and Ethan disappeared into the darkness. Fugitives bound by fate, hunted by gods and monsters alike, but united by something neither of their worlds could understand. The forest whispered their names as they fled through the night. Rain clung to their skin, and moonlight slipped between the black trees like silver knives. Seraphina and Ethan moved without rest, hunted by creatures of the council. Their footsteps left glowing trails of blood on the cold earth. Ethan's wound throbbed, but he didn't complain. Every time his strength faded, he felt her presence inside his mind, soft, steady, and burning like a heartbeat made of light. The bond between them had grown so deep that their thoughts sometimes overlapped. When she felt pain, he gasped. When he dreamed, she saw it through his eyes. After days of travel, they reached the edge of the Deadlands, a place where sunlight never touched and the ground was cracked like broken glass. Once, this had been a battlefield where vampires and humans destroyed each other. Now, only ghosts remained. "We'll rest here," Seraphina said, her voice weak. Her crimson cloak fluttered in the cold wind. Ethan looked at her pale face. "You haven't fed in days," he said. "You'll die." She smiled faintly. "You forget. I already did, long ago." But he could see the truth. Her power was fading. The bond trembled, her heartbeat flickering inside his chest like a dying flame. Without a word, Ethan took her hand. He brought her fingers to his neck. "Then take what you need." Her eyes widened. "No," she whispered. "If I drink from you again, the bond will consume you." "I'm already yours," he said softly. "So let it." For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, with trembling hands, she touched his face. Her lips brushed his skin, cold as moonlight. The bite came gently this time. No pain, only warmth spreading through his body like fire. As her fangs pierced his skin, the world seemed to fade. Memories flashed through his mind. Her childhood in the Palace of Mirrors, the night she was crowned, the centuries of loneliness, the first human she ever killed, the first tear she never shed. He saw everything, and for the first time, he understood her completely. When she pulled away, her eyes glowed softly. "You fool," she whispered. "You've given me life again." Ethan smiled weakly. "Then promise me you'll use it to live." Before she could answer, the wind shifted. Shadows moved across the hills. A dozen shapes cloaked in black armor. The council hunters had found them. Seraphina's eyes hardened. "They tracked my scent," she said. "They won't stop until one of us is dead." Ethan drew his blade. "Then we stopped them first." The first hunter lunged from the dark. His blade hissed through the air. Seraphina caught it with her bare hand, sparks bursting where steel met shadow. Ethan struck beside her, his weapon glowing faintly from the blood bond's strange energy. Together they fought like one being. Her speed, his strength, their souls moving in perfect rhythm. But there were too many. Dozens surrounded them. The ground shook with every blow. Seraphina's power began to flicker again. The holy symbols on the hunter's armor burned her skin like acid. Ethan saw her stumble and rushed to shield her. His blade shattered under a heavy strike, and a spear pierced his side. He fell to one knee, blood soaking the dirt. Seraphina screamed his name. The sound wasn't mortal. It cracked the air. Every hunter froze for a heartbeat, and in that moment, she unleashed everything. Her wings, long forgotten and sealed by magic, burst from her back in a storm of black feathers and red fire. She rose into the air, her power burning the sky. The hunters cried out as shadows tore through them. The light in their eyes went dark one by one. When the storm ended, silence fell. Only Ethan's shallow breaths broke the stillness. Seraphina dropped beside him, her hands glowing with faint energy. "Stay with me," she whispered, pressing her palm against his wound. Her magic flowed into him, but it hurt her in return. Each time she gave him life, part of her strength died. "You can't," he whispered. "You'll kill yourself." She smiled weakly. "I told you before, we are bound. If you die, I die." He tried to speak, but darkness pulled at his vision. She held him close, her tears falling like drops of fire. In that broken wasteland, surrounded by ashes and moonlight, Seraphina kissed his forehead and whispered, "You are not my weakness, Ethan. You are my reason." She lifted her gaze to the stars. "If the gods made this curse, then I will make it holy." And as the wind howled through the ruins, the Vampire Duchess carried her wounded human deeper into the Deadlands, where no council dared to follow. But in the distance, far beyond the mountains, the High Chancellor watched the red sky. "Let her run," he said quietly. "The bond cannot last. When love burns too bright, it always turns to ash." The deadlands stretched endless under a silent sky. Nothing lived there. No birds, no beasts, only dust and memory. The ground itself seemed cursed, cracked and gray. Serafina walked through it with Ethan's limp body in her arms. Every step left behind trails of red light from her bleeding feet. Ethan's breathing was weak, shallow like a dying flame. His skin was pale, his wound still bleeding despite her magic. The bond between them pulsed faintly. She could feel his heartbeat slowing, and with it, her own. "Don't leave me," she whispered, holding him tighter. "Not yet." She reached a ruined temple carved from black stone. Inside, ancient runes glowed faintly, symbols of the old gods, the ones that vampires no longer prayed to. She laid Ethan on the altar, her hands trembling. "There must be a way," she said to the empty air. "There must be something I can give." A faint voice answered her, not from the air, but from within her own mind. A whisper born of the bond itself. "You can give everything." Serafina looked down at him, her eyes shining with tears. "Everything," she repeated. "Then so be it." She raised her hands, dark mist swirling around her fingers, her wings spread wide, and a crimson circle formed beneath the altar, symbols of life and death intertwined. The air grew cold, lightning flashed above the temple roof. The magic demanded blood, hers and his. The spell was forbidden, one that could fuse two souls completely. She cut her palm and let the blood drip onto his wound. The crimson glow spread through his veins like fire. "Ethan Vale," she said softly, "you were born human, fragile and bright, but now I offer you what the stars denied, my immortality, my curse, my love." As the ritual deepened, the bond began to twist. The mark on Ethan's neck flared with light. The shadows rose like living serpents, wrapping around both of them. The air trembled as their souls started to merge. Ethan gasped suddenly, his eyes opening in pain. "Serafina, what are you doing?" "Saving you," she said, her voice breaking. "Even if it damns me forever." He shook his head weakly. "No, you can't trade your life for mine." "I already did the moment I bit you," she whispered. "Now I finish what fate began." The blood circle burned brighter. The ground split open. Winds roared. Ethan tried to pull away but couldn't move. He could feel her life pouring into him. Her memories, her power, her centuries of sorrow. "Stop," he pleaded. "You'll disappear." Her tears fell onto his chest, glowing like tiny rubies. "Then I'll live in you," she whispered. "Every breath, every heartbeat will carry me." The magic reached its peak. The temple walls cracked, and the runes exploded into light. The shadows screamed as they vanished, leaving behind silence. When the storm faded, Ethan lay still. The altar was shattered, and the air smelled of smoke and iron. He opened his eyes slowly. The world felt different, his senses sharper, his body stronger. He could feel power moving through his veins. Not his own, but hers. He sat up, looking around. "Serafina?" No answer, only a soft voice inside his mind. "I'm here." He froze. "Where?" "Inside you," she whispered gently. "The bond is complete. My soul lives within yours now." He felt her presence, warm and calm, like a heartbeat beside his own. He pressed his hand over his chest, tears in his eyes. "You gave up everything. For you," she said, "because love isn't about blood or power, it's about choice." Outside the temple, the first sunlight in a century broke through the clouds. Ethan stepped out into it, expecting pain, but felt only warmth. He looked at his reflection in the cracked mirror of a fallen obelisk. His eyes now glowed faintly red, his shadow stretched with faint wings. The Vampire Duchess was gone, and yet she lived through him. In the distance, the council soldiers searched the deadlands, but when they reached the temple, they found only an empty altar and a symbol burned into the floor, a single mark shaped like two hearts bound by flame. Lord Velora stared at it in disbelief. "Impossible," he whispered. "No bond has ever crossed death." And far away, standing atop the ruins, Ethan whispered into the wind. "You said love would destroy us, Velora," he said softly. "But you were wrong. It made us infinite." The sky turned red one last time, the mark on his neck glowing brighter, and from the shadows, a faint voice answered inside him. "Forever, my human." The world had changed. The night skies no longer held the same silence. Somewhere between the realms of human and vampire, something new had been born. Ethan stood on the black cliffs of the Deadlands, the wind howling through broken stone. His eyes glowed faintly red. His heartbeat echoed with two rhythms, his own and hers. Seraphina's voice whispered inside him like a memory that refused to fade. "You're not alone, my human, never again." He looked down at his hands. Power shimmered under his skin, veins glowing with crimson light. The air around him bent slightly, as if reality itself could feel what he had become. He wasn't human anymore, nor fully vampire. He was something between, a bridge forged by love and blood. From the horizon, shadows began to move. The Vampire Council's army marched across the plains, thousands of armored figures, banners burning with black fire. Above them floated Lord Vaelric, his silver crown reflecting the lightning. "Ethan Vale," Vaelric's voice boomed across the wind. "You carry the stolen soul of the Duchess. Hand it over, and your end will be swift." Ethan stood tall, his expression calm. "She's not stolen," he said, his voice echoing through the storm. "She's alive, within me." Vaelric sneered. "Blasphemy. You think a mortal can hold the power of an eternal?" Ethan closed his eyes, feeling her warmth in his chest. "Show them," she whispered. He spread his arms, and the mark on his neck burst into light. Crimson energy erupted around him like fire made of starlight. The storm above twisted into a spiral. The ground cracked beneath his feet. The first wave of soldiers charged, blades flashing like silver rain. Ethan moved faster than thought. His strikes were guided by her, Seraphina's memories, her skill, her fury. Each movement flowed like a dance between love and vengeance. When arrows rained down, he raised his hand. The air shimmered, and black wings of shadow spread wide from his back, blocking the sky. The council's power met his, but where their magic fed on blood, his drew from the bond. From two souls that refused to die, lightning and fire collided, and the Deadlands shook. Vaelric descended, his sword blazing with divine light. "You're an abomination," he shouted. Ethan met his blade head-on. Sparks exploded between them. "Maybe," he said, "but I'm hers." Their clash split the sky, light and darkness intertwined. Each strike carried centuries of rage and love. Ethan could hear Seraphina's voice guiding him, her presence steady, her courage unbroken. "Don't fight for me," she whispered. "Fight for what we believed, a world where no heart belongs to chains." Ethan roared, driving Vaelric back. His power surged until the ground itself began to glow. The council's soldiers fell to their knees as the light swallowed everything. When the dust settled, the battlefield was silent. Only one figure remained standing. Ethan, his armor shattered, his body bleeding light. Vaelric lay defeated before him. "You could destroy me," Vaelric said weakly, "but it will change nothing. The council will rise again." Ethan looked up at the red sky. "Then I'll rise higher," he said. He stepped forward and placed his hand over the chancellor's chest. "Tell your council this. The age of the purebloods is over. The age of unity begins now." He turned away, and as he walked, the glow of his body began to fade into the mist. His wings dissolved into starlight. His voice was calm. "I will carry her will until the stars forget our names." Far above, the clouds parted, revealing a single red star shining brighter than any other. Seraphina's voice echoed softly in the wind. "You did it, my love." Ethan smiled faintly. "We did it." His eyes closed, and the crimson light around him drifted into the sky, merging with the star. Years passed, and stories spread, of a human who defied death, of a duchess who loved beyond eternity. Some called it legend, others called it hope. And on quiet nights, when the red star burned over the Deadlands, travelers swore they could still hear two voices whispering through the wind. One human, one eternal, bound forever in the promise they made beneath a dying moon. No more thrones, no more chains, only us.